Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of September 17th. And I'm really glad now to bring on a couple of people and one new person. Two people were on the show not too long ago from the group All-Chicago Tenant Alliance, and they would be Miles Bennett Hogarty and Maya Odendahl. And joining them, and the first time I've met him, is Hassan Dustar, and they are involved with the group All-Chicago Tenant Alliance, and they caught my attention, having been involved in some rent strikes in my youth with Join Community Union and Rising Up Angry. I read about a rally that was taking place down on Broadway, and I went down there that day, and there were probably 50, 75 people giving support to people who were on a rent strike. And for those people who don't know, a rent strike would be withholding rent until certain demands, concerns, issues are addressed by the owner of a building. And so good day to all three of you. It's good to have you on the show. How about someone starting off and telling us a little bit about the All-Chicago Tenants Alliance, how it came to be, and what you do?
Sure. So ACTA, the All-Chicago Tenant Alliance, originally formed out of a tenant union in and of itself. We were tenants organizing under a landlord named Mark Fishman in Logan Square, beginning around COVID and up until around 2014 or so. And we came into challenges and sticking around. Most of us got booted out one way or another, and we opted to organize outside of Fishman and using a theory that we were developing called the intra-landlord organization, where we organize under one landlord. We basically grew into ACTA, developed into ACTA, and now we are an organization of tenants that go out and try to organize other tenants in the city, looking to form them into tenant unions and militant tenant unions that will fight for more control over their housing. And just as you said, Michael, one of the sort of key aspects of the way that we organize is organizing around the rent strike, which is what we believe is the most effective weapon that tenants can utilize in combat, more or less, against their landlords.
What rights do tenants have? I mean, what are the things that you would advocate for or ask for when you're trying to organize a building, or when you've been invited in to help organize a tenants union?
I can talk a little bit. So yeah, thanks for having us. But I guess tenants' rights in Chicago are really not super strong right now. What we've seen is that the on-paper rights that tenants have to withhold rent or to do like a repair and deduct, keep their rent back in order to make repairs in their apartments. These types of things aren't really protected when it gets to court. A lot of times landlords will just, ignore the fact that the tenants are doing what's known as illegal withholding, and they will put kind of the pressure on the tenants to bring them to court. And, that this might take the form of like evicting the tenants, and then the tenants have to prove that they were in the right. In any case, the burden is put on the tenants. And we really think that like the tenant's real source of power is the fact that they give the rent to the landlord, just like the landlord's source of power is that they're the ones who control the homes. So tenants need to be really taking that power into their own hands and using their rent checks in order to basically enforce their rights.
What are some of the historical antecedents for this that inspired you? I know that we had a collective bargaining contract through Joint Community Union that the city, I believe, kind of recognized at that time that, the landlord did come to an agreement with us. But when I'm thinking about rights, I'm wondering how long, if a landlord wants to throw you out, how much time do you have? And how many times do you go to court? Is it 6 months before they can throw you out? Or any information on that?
Yeah. So tenants do have some protections around evictions. If you are being evicted, you have a first day to show up at court, where you can either have a lawyer, but if you don't have a lawyer, you get put into contact with a lawyer who may or may not take your case. Then you have another day at court where things kind of get figured out. You may have another day at court, and then finally a trial. So those are kind of the main few things. There's also ways that these get like pushed down the road. Tenants have the right to request a jury trial, which can make things take a little bit longer because then discovery comes in, and there's time for negotiations. What we've seen with striking tenants is that I think it's been around like 6 months, with kind of a group strategy, thinking about the court strategically and how to buy as much time as possible for negotiations, for things to happen. So yeah, it can take a little bit of time if you're prepared for it and ready to use it strategically.
Have you seen any variation on the behalf of any judges? I mean, some being more favorable than others?
Yeah.
Similar issues?
Yeah, I mean, kind of recently, I'm sure Mara can go into a little bit more detail, but we got assigned, working with one of our unions, the Belden Sawyer Tenant Association, we got assigned a pretty poor judge in the case that was kind of newer to the situation and newer to this kind of law, and sort of expedited the process relative to other judges. I would say for the most part, judges in general are not quite favorable when it comes to this kind of conflict in court. And for the most part, landlords, due to the cost of court, are pretty incentivized to settle and negotiate with the tenants outside of it. So, in our experience, there is the looming sort of prospect of court always, but for the most part, these things sort of end outside of it.
I know there's been some activity up here in Rogers Park. It took me a while to figure out they had a different name than Active, but clearly you've been in contact and involved with them. And I'm just wondering, what do you have going up in Rogers Park, which is home base kind of for this show, and around the city? How many tenant unions are there, and what kind of activities are going on right now?
Yeah, I can talk about this. There's quite a few tenant unions around the city. The one that you came to the rally for in Buena Park, they're tied with BSTA, and they're kind of coming to their close. We have a tenant union in Austin, which just won some negotiations. They got a few things that they were hoping for in their demands. But the ones in Rogers Park, which are the kind of big ones that we're looking at in the next couple of months, this is Fuerzas Activas de la Damen, or Damon, the street. And these are tenants that we've organized. So when we organize a building, we try and get them to think about the name of their own union, and sort of in the same way that you might have like locals. So they're connected to us, and we share resources, and we go to their meetings and help them facilitate good meetings. And but also we try to encourage tenants to be able to take on the organization by themselves. And part of the reason for this is because when the immediate fight is over, we want the union to keep going. Mm-hmm. We want to be able to step away and still have them coming to us and strategizing, but also being able to run their own buildings union. And these buildings in particular, it's really like mainly tenants from 4 buildings, but there is a 5th building. These are all buildings with mostly Spanish-speaking tenants. And this landlord named Imran Khan bought these 5 buildings and immediately sent them letters that he was going to be raising the rent by hundreds of dollars, like $600 to $800, depending on the unit. And we believe that this is part of kind of a gentrification plan that he has for Rogers Park. He's been buying up buildings up there, and he's looking to, as he says, renovate them. He's said multiple times that he's looking forward to a beautiful new Rogers Park. And he's kind of using this strategy with the like the alderwoman to kind of say that he's going to be a force for new, good kind of development in the neighborhood. But in reality, what he's doing is he's making it unaffordable for the people that live there. So these tenants have told us and have basically, the reason they're organizing is that they won't be able to afford these rents that's coming up. So although he is not literally evicting them, he's sort of doing this kind of implicit eviction by raising the rents to a level which he knows that they can't afford. And in fact, he bought the buildings knowing that he wouldn't be able to make profits at rents that these tenants would likely be able to afford. So he's looking to basically turn these around and gentrify is our main kind of idea of his motive.
Well, it clearly is a gentrification move always, and real estate kind of controls a lot of what goes on. I recently at the Glenwood Avenue Arts Fair ran into some former employees at the Heartland Cafe, and I asked where they lived, thinking they were living in the neighborhood. And they said, no, we've moved to Evanston. It's cheaper. And Rogers Park has always been a gem, and a lot of people didn't know about it. We have real mixed incomes up here, as well as diversity and race and ethnicity, et cetera. And it's a challenge right now. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm wondering how many organizer types do you have involved in ACTA these days? And how have your skills developed in organizing new tenants unions?
Yeah, we have around 13. I think that's accurate, something around there. Pretty hardcore organizers that are, spending a huge amount of time outside of work during the weeks on this, with a especially kind of hardcore core 7. Through running these rent strikes, I would say our skills have developed quite a lot in the city. There's big differences between something like Fuerzas Activas in Rogers Park than like Fuerzas Inquilinos de Broadway y Kyler in Buena Park or BSDA. There's a big difference in the character of the tenants as well as the situations. But I think overall, our skills in sort of organizing have developed a huge amount, thanks to the rent strike method, more or less, where we're really bringing the fight outside of the courts, outside of delegating it to the hands of just the lawyers, and really kind of forced to take the impetus on our shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would add that, like, in addition to the 13 or so,
it's
13
something
or
around
15,
there.
like kind of core members, there's also like a varying group of people who join us. So on any given kind of Saturday, we might have like about 20 to 30 people going out in different parts of the city on higher days of participation. And these are people that we're trying to use like internal programs in order to, help people get into the knowledge of what we do and how we think about these struggles.
Real briefly, because I want to get to Hassan and the stuff that he's doing with you. How broad is the tenants' rights movement around the country? Any other places where stuff is going on?
Yeah, it's pretty broad. There's larger projects in Kansas City and LA, but I think sort of the one of the kind of problems about the movement is that tenant organizations will spike up in times of crisis here and there all across the nation, and sort of die down once this crisis ends. So there is broad popularity and broad organizations across the nation and the world too, but it's kind of a problem of lasting.
Let me ask a question of Hassan Dostar, who's been very patient here. My understanding is you are working on an internal bulletin for the organizers and a little bit beyond of the ACTA movement. Can you tell us a little bit about your international bulletin?
Yes, for sure. And thanks for having us on. I'm a member of ACTA, a general member, and I work with another comrade to write a weekly publication about news from around the world. There's no shortage, of course, of messiness that the United States government is involving itself in regarding, interfering in Venezuela, carrying out genocide in Palestine, propping up various unsavory dictators. And so also there are many changes happening on the global stage that we feel as an organization that is organizing working class tenants, it's essential for our members to know about, and increasingly important for tenants to know about as well. So we write this publication to give analysis and to provide reading recommendations, and really to stay in touch with the world that we're all fighting to transform.
Who can get it, and how would they get a copy? I'd love to see it, to be honest with you.
So currently it's shared in our chats, group chats, but we could definitely send it to you. And okay. I think we will, as it develops further, we will definitely think more about how we distribute it to a wider audience.
What I'd like to add to Michael is that there's kind of two simultaneous publications happening in our organization: the International Bulletin and Tenants Talk, a newspaper that we talked about last time on your show. And slowly, the content is being mixed. So you'll see a lot of this stuff in Tenants Talk as well.
Great. Let me ask you, as we go out, I would imagine the buildings that you're working in, which are largely Latino and Spanish speaking, what other issues, things don't happen in a vacuum. It's not just tenants. There's also jobs, there's the economy, there's healthcare, and there's ICE and immigration. We got about a minute left. Can anyone address how the ICE raids have influenced tenants in your buildings?
I can talk about it a little bit. While there hasn't directly been any interaction with ICE, as far as we know, with tenants that we're working with, we do have tenants like in Fuerzas Inquilinos and Broadway Kyler that they had family members in other parts of the country picked up. So we helped raise legal fees and raised $10,000 with them for their family members at a block party a couple weeks ago. On the other hand, we also think that tenant unions, even though they're kind of still forming in Chicago, we've seen in places like LA that tenant unions really can coordinate and do ICE actions against ICE and protect people. LA has coordinated watches, and because they're organized, they're able to go into the communities and really be effective, be there without just kind of a voluntary basis. They have kind of a way of keeping track of who's supposed to be where. And this is something that we hope to achieve.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming on. Hassan, it's good to meet you. And it's good to see you, Miles and Maya.
Great to meet you.
And we'll have you back not too far off, because I know you're active and we like that kind of activity. And we want to share it with the masses far and wide.